Kia ora, good morning everyone, Rich Warren here. Welcome back to the channel. Today we are looking at not one, but three new lenses. These are the Sirui Sniper 23, 33 and 56mm f1.2 lenses. And before we start, just a quick disclaimer. Sirui sent me the lens samples I use in this review, but they haven't paid me any money, and this is a completely independent review, and I'm going to share with you my honest thoughts about these lenses. These new Sirui Sniper lenses are APS-C lenses, and they give you full frame equivalent focal length of approximately 35, 50 and 85mm. So three of the most popular traditional focal length. These lenses are available for the Sony E, Fuji X and Nikon Z mount. Of course, you can use them on full-frame cameras as well, especially some of the full-frame Sony and Nikon cameras video mode are APS-C crop. There are three big selling points for this set of sniper lenses. The first one, while Sirui has released a lot of lenses over the last few years, but these sniper lenses are the first autofocus lenses from Sirui. The second one is, these lenses have a very fast f1.2 maximum aperture, but at the same time, the price is only around US $400. So the price is very similar to some other third-party f1.4 autofocus lenses, but offers almost half a stop faster maximum aperture. It means these lenses are a very attractive choice for people who are looking for the fastest autofocus lenses, but with a limited budget. The third one is, all these lenses have the exact same body dimensions. So they have the same length, same diameter, same filter thread size, and even the weight are very similar at between 380 gram to 419 gram for the Fuji X version. So what it means is, for photographers, you can share the same front filter between these three lenses, and for videographers, it makes it very easy for you to switch the lenses when you are shooting with a gimbal, as you don't need to rebalance your setup when swapping lenses. If you use follow focus, you don't need to readjust the position of the follow focus, as well as the focus ring is at the exact same position. So this is very similar to what Panasonic has done with their f1.8 prime lenses for their full frame cameras. This also suggests that these lenses has a very strong video focus, as is the photographers that benefit the most with lenses that has the same dimensions. There are three different versions for these lenses: black, white and silver. The sample Sirui sent me is the white one, and they told me the body is mostly made of aluminium, but when I hold the lens, it feels quite weird. I don't really know how to describe it, maybe because it has the ceramic coating on the outside for this white version. But yeah, the body of this white version just feels very special. The silver version has a very shiny finish, and the black version has carbon fiber on the outside. I haven't got a chance to see or hold one in my hands yet, but I've checked with Sirui and they told me the black version has the real carbon fiber they use on the body, so it's not just a carbon fiber pattern sticker. It's not really surprising, as Sirui has made lots of carbon fiber tripods, so they know carbon fiber very well. All the three lenses comes with a removable, reversible lens hood that clicks onto the lens very nicely. The lens hood for the 23mm and the 33mm lenses are the same petal-shaped one, while the 56mm has a cylinder-shaped lens hood. One thing I was a little bit surprised is that you could attach the longer lens hood for the 56mm lens onto the 23 or the 33mm lens, and if you do that, it would create some minor vignetting to the 33mm lens and very noticeable dark corner to the 23mm lens. This is something the more established lens manufacturers wouldn't do, as usually if the lens has a different lens hood, then it can only be attached to the lens that it is designed for. I don't think these lenses are weather sealed, and I don't see any rubber seal on the metal lens mount, but this is not really a complaint consider the price of these lenses. There isn't any switches or any other special features on the lens. Just a manual focus ring, which is focused by wire, and the focus flow is pretty long, 360 degrees, which gives you slower but more precise focus control. There is a USB-C port on the lens mount for firmware update, but I haven't tried it myself, so I can't really comment on if the upgrade process is easy or reliable. As these are Sirui's first set of autofocus lenses, the autofocus performance is something that I'm most curious about. Could it be as good as some of the best third-party autofocus lenses, or is it still more like a work in progress? So this Sniper lenses uses STM autofocus motor. When I mount the lens onto the camera, my first impression is that the autofocus is very quiet. It's much quieter than I thought. And the autofocus with my Fujifilm X-H2 is very fast as well. When I half press the shutter button, it's pretty much just snap onto the target immediately. So that's definitely a very good first impression. Shooting photo with continuous autofocus also works very well. It's smooth and quiet, so I'm very happy about it. Eye detection also works fine as well. However, from time to time, there could be a bit of minor autofocus hunting or even misfocus when I'm shooting in the single autofocus mode. For example, when I was shooting the sharpness test, I noticed when the aperture was set at between f1.2 to 1.6, then the focus would quite often hunt slightly before it locks onto the target. This happens with all the three lenses. However, once I stop down to f1.8, then the focus wouldn't hunt anymore. And when shooting video with my Fuji X-H2, the continuous autofocus is a little bit slow, but I'm not too sure if it's the camera or the lens, as I don't have any Fujifilm f1.2 lens with me to compare. So overall, autofocus performance is not bad, especially considering these are the first set of autofocus lenses from Sirui, but I would love to see some firmware update to improve and fine-tune the autofocus performance a little bit in the future. Before we start the usual image quality test, I want to talk about two things first. The first one is how big the difference is between f1.2 and f1.4. So here are two photos shot with the Sniper 33mm f1.2 lens with exact same camera settings and lighting apart from the aperture value. The left photo was shot at f1.2 and the right one is at f1.4. The photo shot at f1.2 is a bit brighter than the photo shot at f1.4. If I increase the exposure of the photo shot at f1.4 by 0.5 stop, then the brightness is now virtually identical to the photo shot at f1.2. So in this example, the f1.2 photo gives us half a stop more light, which means you could shoot at half a stop lower ISO to get the same exposure if you keep all the other settings the same. For example, it means you could shoot at ISO 4800 instead of ISO 6400. It's not a huge difference, but if you need to shoot under very low light condition, then that half a stop can be very useful. The other difference is the depth of field and the background blur, which I feel is the bigger reason why people want these ultra-fast aperture lenses, as the camera these days usually have pretty good high ISO performance. So look at these two photos, one shot at f1.2 and one at f1.4. There is some difference in the background blur. The background melts slightly more with the photo shot at f1.2, but while I can see the difference, to be honest, I think the difference is not really that big. The next thing I want to talk about is the focal length. While these lenses are available in a free lens set like the sample that Sirui sent me, a lot of people would only pick up one lens at a time. So quite often you may wonder which is the best lens that you should get, or you should get first at least. While there is a bit of difference in terms of image quality which may affect your purchase decision, but personally, if I have to buy a lens, I would usually start by looking at the focal length first. I would find the focal length that I need or I want the most. Then I will see if the image quality of a particular lens of that focal length meets my requirements. It's because the difference in focal length makes a much bigger difference to how the image will look like than the difference in optics quality between different lenses. Here are 3 photos shot with each of these sniper lenses. I shot all these photos at the exact same spot using the exact same camera settings and all photos shot at f1.2. We can easily see the big difference in the field of view and also the depth of field as well. The photo shot with the 23mm lens is quite a bit wider and the background doesn't dissolve quite as much. On the opposite end, the photo shot with the 56mm lens is much tighter in terms of field of view and the background also melts a lot more. But the most powerful thing about shooting with lenses of different focal length is that you can adjust the composition and the look relative to your main subject. So here is another set of photos, again shot with the same camera settings, but I move myself so the main subject, which is the statue, remains approximately the same size and same position in each of these photos. If you compare these 3 photos, the background in the 23mm photo is a lot wider. You see a lot more background, so you get more context about where you are at, which may be good for storytelling. While the photo shot with the 56mm lens, you have that so-called compressed look. There are less things in the background, and combining that with the more shallow depth of field, the main subject would stand out more in the photo. The photo shot with the 35mm lens is somewhere in between. There's no better or worse photo, it's just a matter of how you want your photo to look like. And you should choose the lens that matches the look you want the most. Okay, now let's have a look at the image sharpness, and let's start with the 23mm lens. At f1.2, the center is slightly soft and I can see a small amount of chromatic aberration. Stopping down to f1.4 will give a bit of improvement. At f2, the sharpness becomes pretty good, and at f2.8, the center sharpness becomes excellent. The center sharpness remains similar until we reach f16, when diffraction makes the photo softer. If you look at the corner, at f1.2, the corner is quite soft and it doesn't improve too much until we reach f4, but we have to stop down all the way to f11, then the corner becomes sharp. Now, the corner sharpness results we just saw was done by focus at the center of the image. If we focus at the corner instead, then the corner sharpness does become quite a bit better. If we do that, even at f2.8, the corner sharpness is already decent. It suggests the lens has quite a bit of field curvature, so if corner sharpness is very important to you, you may have to adjust the focus point to the corner when you are shooting a flat surface. Of course, the trade-off is the center now wouldn't be quite as sharp. Next, let's have a look at the 33mm lens. The center is quite similar to the 23mm lens. It's a bit soft at f1.2, f1.4, with some hints of chromatic aberration. Stopping down to f2.8, the center sharpness becomes decent. At f4, it becomes very sharp and all the chromatic aberration has disappeared. The center sharpness remains similar until we reach f16. And now look at the corner. At 1.2, the corner of this 33mm lens is very soft. We have to stop down the lens to f8 to get acceptable corner sharpness, but the corner is just not that sharp even if we stop down further. And just like the 23mm lens, if you focus at the corner, then you can get much better corner sharpness. Let's look at the 56mm lens. Once again, it is a bit soft at f1.2, but stop down slightly to f1.4, the corner sharpness is already quite a bit better. At f2, the center sharpness is very good, but it still has a tiny bit of chromatic aberration. If we stop down a bit more to f2.8, then the center sharpness is now excellent and I don't see any chromatic aberration. The corner is really soft at f1.2. We need to stop down to f5.6, then the corner sharpness becomes acceptable, and it will be slightly sharper if we stop down to f8. Just like the two other lenses, focus at corner will make noticeable improvements to the corner sharpness. We have a look at the close-up performance now. The minimum focus distance of these lenses are 0.3 meter, 0.4 meter, and 0.6 meter. But because of the different focal length, if you look at all these three photos all shot at the minimum focus distance, the maximum magnification ratio is very similar and it's not bad for lens at this focal length. It should be good enough for most kind of everyday close-up photo or video. However, while the magnification ratio is not bad, I can't say the same about the sharpness. When shooting at f1.2 at the minimum focus distance, the image is really soft and I need to stop down the lens quite a bit for the focus becomes sharper. We have a look at bokeh now, which is probably one of the main reasons why people will be interested in this set of f1.2 lenses instead of the other f1.4 or f1.8 lenses in the market. And as we have already looked at some comparison photos before, f1.2 does allow you to blur the background slightly more. You can get a little bit more bokeh balls if you shoot at f1.2 instead of f1.4. Now with these three different focal lengths, for sure the 56mm lens will give you the most shallow depth of field and you can blur the background most easily as well. But if we talk about bokeh, that is the quality of the out of focus area, not the quantity. So let's look at these three photos all shot at f1.2 with the three sniper lenses. The bokeh balls all look a little bit different. While all three lenses have a bit of cat's eye bokeh effect near the corner, the 33mm lens seems to have the least amount of cat's eye bokeh. If you look at the edge of the bokeh balls, the 56mm lens has the smoothest transition, while the 23mm lens has quite noticeable halo ring at the edge of the bokeh balls. So the 33mm and 56mm sniper lenses would render the autofocus background area pretty smoothly, while the 23mm lens would look a bit more busy. Some people may like it and call it a vintage look. Thanks to the curved aperture brace, all these three lenses would render round, smooth bokeh balls even when you stop down the lens quite a bit. One reason why people want to purchase a set of lenses of different focal length from the same series from the same manufacturer is to get a consistent look when they are switching between these lenses. The term consistent look can mean slightly different thing to different people. Some people may tell you it's all about the bokeh or the sharpness, but to me, I think the colors is what I think matters the most. This is important for me personally when I work as a wedding or event photographer. When I'm shooting with multiple lenses, I don't want the color to be dramatically different from the photos shot with different lenses, but it's even more important for videographers as color grading normal video footage is more challenging than editing raw photos. And it's also quite often you will be editing video clips shot with different lenses and put them together rather than watch them separately, so it would be a lot more noticeable if the colors don't really match. So here are three photos I shot with each of these sniper lenses, all shot at f1.2 with the same white balance settings and the same exposure settings. The scene is lit up by a studio light to keep it consistent. If I compare the photo shot with the 33 and the 56mm lens, there's a slight difference in the colors. The 56mm lens is slightly more green than the 33mm lens, but I think the difference is very small. However, the photo from the 23mm lens looks quite different from the other two photos. The 23mm lens seems to be a lot warmer than the other two lenses, and the photo also appears to be slightly darker as well. The difference in brightness is not too noticeable, but the color difference is pretty easy to see. This is a bit unfortunate, as it means anyone shooting with these three lenses together would need to do a bit of work to color correct the photo or video shot with the 23mm lens if they want a consistent look from the three lenses. We'll look at these lenses' vignetting performance now. Look at these photos all shot at f1.2. The 23mm lens has some noticeable but very acceptable vignetting. But I'm surprised that both the 33mm and the 56mm lens have very minimal amount of vignetting, much less than what I expected from a f1.2 lens at f1.2. Stopping down the 33mm and 56mm lens doesn't really improve vignetting much at all because there really isn't much that you can improve. With the 23mm lens, once I stop down to f2.8, then pretty much all the vignetting would disappear. However, I want to point out, these are all the results of the raw file with the lens profile correction enabled. If I disable the profile correction in Lightroom, not surprisingly, they are now more vignetting. However, I think the amount is still at pretty acceptable level, especially consider these are fairly compact f1.2 lenses. In terms of chromatic aberration, all these three lenses do have quite a bit of chromatic aberration. While I wouldn't say terrible, I can see a fair bit of color fringing in my real-world photos, especially when I'm shooting at f1.2. This is also the same when I look at my local test photos. There is some quite noticeable green and purple fringing, especially with the two longer focal length sniper lenses. And we'll look at the distortion control now. The 23mm lens has some noticeable barrel distortion. The 33mm lens has almost no distortion, and the 56mm lens has a small amount of pincushion distortion. Interestingly, enabling or disabling the lens profile correction for my Fuji X mount lenses in Lightroom makes no difference at all to the distortion. The lens profile correction seems to only affect vignetting. So if you want to minimize distortion, you have to do some manual adjustment during post-processing. A major weakness for a lot of lenses from Chinese optics manufacturer is usually the lens flare. You probably have heard me complain about lens flare in a lot of my lens reviews. With these lenses, the lens flare performance is quite alright. While I do see a bit of lens flare and ghosting, it's not really excessive, and the contrast also maintained at decent level. So I would say the overall lens flare performance is good enough that should not be a problem for most users. All these three lenses have 11 aperture brace, and if you want to have Sunstars in your photos, you need to stop down the lens a lot to at least around f8, then you will start to see a bit of Sunstars. But you really have to stop down all the way to f16 if you want the Sunstars to become sharp and clean. Between these three lenses, the 56mm lens has the sharpest and the best looking Sunstars in my opinion. The Sunstars from the 23mm and 33mm sniper are really not that nice looking. And we'll have a look at the focus briefing now. With the 23mm lens, there is virtually no focus briefing at all when I change the focus from 1 meter to infinity. That is very impressive. With the 33mm lens, there is a small amount of focus briefing, but it's still very minor. The 56mm lens has the most noticeable amount of focus briefing, but for a 56mm lens, I would still say it is very well controlled. So if you want lenses with very minimal focus briefing, these sniper lenses will be a good choice for you. These sniper lenses are quite an ambitious goal for Sirui. Not only these are their first autofocus lenses, they start with a really fast aperture which makes it hard to hide any flaws in their autofocus implementation. The same size body for these three lenses also add quite a bit of challenge for the design team. And yes, they are releasing 3 lenses at the same time rather than just one at a time. And the fact that these lenses comes in 3 different color options with carbon fiber parts and ceramic coating just add more challenges to their design team. But at the same time, it's not very surprising because it is the same company that was primarily making tripod up until a few years ago, but all of a sudden, they launched more than a dozen different anamorphic lenses within a very short period of time. So with such ambitious goal, is it mission accomplished for Sirui? Well, I think we will have to look at it from a few different angles. First, the autofocus implementation is good enough, at least for the Fuji version that I've tested. It's quiet, it's fast, and it's smooth. While sometimes it may still have a bit of focus hunting and misfocus, but it's hard to tell how much of those is from the camera and how much is from the lens itself. But overall, I think the autofocus is good enough. In terms of image quality, at f1.2 or even f1.4, the image quality is not really that great. So depending on what you shoot, I think for portrait or street or everyday photos, it's still quite usable. But for more technically demanding photos like landscape, then you really need to stop down the lens quite a bit. However, for video shooters, because video usually is a lot less demanding in terms of image quality, especially resolution, I think even f1.2 is still pretty good. The very minimal focus briefing, long focus throw, and the fact that all these 3 lenses have the same dimensions make these lenses great for video shooting, no matter you do running gun style shooting or have your camera set up on a tripod. So overall, considering the price of these lenses are just around $400 each, I would say the end product is pretty successful. There are areas Sirui can improve, but $400 for autofocus f1.2 lenses, we have to be realistic what we should expect, and these sniper lenses have met my expectations. And while Sirui hasn't told me their future plan, I am really expecting to see some full-frame, fast autofocus lenses from them in 2024, and I'm definitely looking forward to see them.